This is Crystal from scenestr TV, and today we're talking Queensland's new lockout laws. We're just 3 months away from Phase 1, which will see last drinks called at 3 a.m. and no shots after midnight. And then in just under a year, Phase 2 will roll out, which is the 1 a.m. lockout. We've been speaking with stakeholders and politicians from both sides of the discussion.
I've spoken to a lot of people who, book bands and agents, promoters, and they view Sydney as an absolute joke as an entertainment hub because it's just fallen apart, and that's exactly that will happen to Brisbane. Mm-hmm. I mean, we haven't necessarily got a world-renowned status like Sydney has, so if that happened to Sydney and it was so incredibly detrimental, imagine what's going to happen to Brisbane. It's just going to tear us apart.
There's been quite a lot of empirical evidence that have come up from down south about how the laws have worked in areas such as Newcastle and in Sydney, which have had, different liquor trading hours now for some time. But plus we linked up with some university research that had been conducted, and we had many interest groups that we referred to as well. And so the research is definitely showing that for reductions in hours of the selling of liquor brings about a reduction in alcohol-fueled violence.
Look, our position always was that this was an evidence-based exercise. We've got no particular set mind about these things. It's a question of how do we set the laws so that people can have a good night out and a safe night out. That's really where we get to. It was interesting that when the Labor Party put up these laws, the parliamentary committee that looked at these laws, which was 3 Labor and 3 LNP, came as its first recommendation to this conclusion: we need to go out and get more data. Now, our view is exactly that you don't make laws and then go out and get data. You should get the data first and then make the laws.
Once a month there's a safe night out meeting, and it's all people in the precinct, whether it be OGLO, liquor licensing, police, fire, ambulance, and then there's people from the taxi council, there's club owners, there's licensees, there's venue managers, there's bar managers, there's everyone. It's basically a time where we all kind of sit down and we collate what's happened over the past month. We talk about the assaults, if there's been any, and assaults have been down a lot, and I've been going to them for around about 2 years.
Everyone has really been sort of touting what's been happening down in New South Wales is fantastic and a reduction in violence. I guess what we're trying to say is, well, you got to couple that with the rest of the facts and show the whole picture. So in King's Cross, there's been a decrease in patronage by up to 80%. So but just because there's been a decrease by 40%, there's actually it's become a more violent sort of per capita sort of situation.
I think a lot of people think it's just, we're trying to instigate that we want people to, be able to drink till 5 a.m. We want people to, get blind drunk. It's all about greedy club owners and greedy promoters who are trying to make a dollar out of the the industry, but it's not that. It's literally, it will kill the culture and the rich immersive culture that the city has. And we had, I want to say, a German tourist trying to walk into the nightclub. He was informed he wasn't allowed in, and he was just so confused. He didn't understand that, he could not go into this club. And I tried to explain, that's the law, and he just laughed and said, what a stupid state, what a stupid place. He walked away shaking his head. I mean, that's the impression we're giving to people.
I don't think any solution proposed by any side of politics guarantees you a 100% success rate. What you have to do is have a practical law that deals with most of the problems. As I said, so much of it relies on individual responsibility. So even these lockouts or early closings, we've already seen that a number of the more serious incidents have happened at 11 o'clock or 12 in the evening. They won't be affected by the early closing or the lockouts.
If we look what happened to Cole Miller exclusively, he was barred entry at, I think it was just after 3 a.m. lockout laws, and then he walked out into Chinatown Mall, and what happened to him was a true tragedy, and no one's denying that. But if lockout laws weren't in place, he could very well still be alive today.
I think there is some merit in the 3 a.m. last drinks. I think had the government ever consulted industry, they would have come to table on the 3 a.m. last drinks. I think the 1 a.m. lockout is the real issue here, and it's the real problem.
The no curfew movement, I guess, was set up close to the last state election when we heard that there was going to be some push from the state government to do something around alcohol-fueled violence. And we're definitely weighing in, I guess, on the LNP side, trying to make sure that they didn't go down that path. And then obviously when the Labor Party did go down that path, we're sort of trying to get the real facts out there to try and get people to change their minds and see that this won't work and will actually be quite counterproductive.
Laws are meant to stifle alcohol-fueled violence when there's not really an issue. I just don't understand why we're pushing for a law that is so destructive more than, it's going to, was it 6,000 jobs? Yeah. About 6,000 jobs that we lost.
We had a range of policies in our Safe Night Out strategy that dealt with these in a way that targeted the ones that were causing the strife and meant that others could continue to have a good night out, that we could have a thriving nightlife, that we could have a busy Fortitude Valley, Cairns, Townsville, and that we had, most importantly for me, because I'm Shadow Arts Minister as well as Shadow Attorney General, we had a thriving live music scene. And I know that those involved in that scene are very concerned about the restriction on hours and what it'll mean to Brisbane's outstanding live music scene.
Nightclubs and live music venues really are a celebration of art, and a city is really judged on its arts culture.
Unfortunately, the legislation for them is slightly different. Their main their main entertainment is still to do with, a nightclub environment and drinking.
Well, you hear the term Newcastle solution a lot, and I think the Melbourne solution is a term we should be saying a lot more, because they've got it right. Melbourne have inarguably the best nightlife in this country. It's some of the best in the world. They make that happen with 24-hour public transport. They froze licenses on 1 a.m., so serving drinks after 1 a.m., in the big booze barns, but had exceptions for live music venues and venues that serve food. So the focus was on small bars, and small bars don't cause problems. You don't go to Fourth Wall here in the Valley and then leave at 2 a.m. and punch someone. It just doesn't happen if you sort of create a small bar culture, which Melbourne has successfully done. And Brisbane stands to really lose all their small bars to these lockouts, because they include the 12 a.m. Ban on shots and cocktails and neat spirits. So the places that really will thrive and survive are these big booze barns that people go in and get way too drunk. There's really they don't add to the city culturally. They're the ones causing the problem, and these laws just target the wrong people. Reasoning from the government that the casino is exempt is because its purpose for existing is gambling, and it's not somewhere you go to drink. But by that same, school of thought, every live music venue should be exempt from lockouts. I mean, that's something I would be down for if the government said, if you're a live music venue, your predominant reason for existing is to showcase live music and showcase bands and be an art space, but you also have a bar to keep the place open. Why can't we apply for that? Then same way casinos get an exemption.
And it's in legislation that has been around for quite a large number of years. The main reason being is that their main, service or provision is gambling.
We're basically shamed with the death of a teenager on the streets in the Valley. At the same time, I don't need to remind the members of government how much of an effect problem gambling has on family violence. And I think that there's no moralizing these laws by saying it'll be all right, the people can still have a flutter on the pokies. That'll keep nightlife alive. Those are the same pokies that the children of problem gamblers, it's sending them to bed hungry.
We've been sort of locked out completely and not consulted at all from the current state government.
There was consultation with I think it was Brisbane breweries, like kind of like craft beer places, but no one on a hospitality level. And we've all tried. I mean, there's been groups like, Curfew. There's been groups like Right to a Safe Night Out, is it? Right into a good night out, sorry. We've got Keep Brisbane Open iteration, and we've all tried and we've all campaigned. I mean, I've written more letters about this topic than I've written about anything in my adult life, and it's all fallen on deaf ears as far as I'm concerned. I've never really received a real response other than a copy and paste on a Facebook page.
This gives the club the opportunity now to have a look at their business models and how they want to operate within this new legislative environment. I think that they obviously have got time now to accommodate whatever decision they make.
It seems really mean almost to ask the clubs and the club owners and the marketers and the promoters to get creative because of the effects of a really uncreative law. There's a million other ways that you can address nighttime violence as are being done in cities like Melbourne that don't stifle the arts spaces and the arts industry in the city.
It's not nightclubs that are to blame for these horrible tragedies. It's poor education. It's people who think that this type of behaviour is okay. I mean, I've never gone out and thought, oh, there's someone, I'm just going to go kill them.
Talk a lot about legislation, but the real sort of knockout punch coming for violence is going to come from education. I mean, you really need to just, if you have a son and he's growing up, you need to tell him that this kind of behavior is wrong. There's a lot of really masculine emphasis in this country, and we tell boys that they have to be tough and they have to be strong, they have to be men. Otherwise, they're somehow less of a human being than if they were a gentle, peaceful. That needs to stop. That's what's causing this violence. It's this toxic sort of masculine culture we're forcing onto our young boys.
There's a pretty good case for just punishing the few people out there that are ruining it for everyone. Ways of doing that, I think, would just be implementing scanners that are all linked across these sort of entertainment districts, and making sure that if you do play up in one venue, or you've been sentenced by court and they say that you can't come into that area for a while, that we can actually enforce that, and there are ways of keeping those people out.
We never supported the ID scanners, I believe, when we were in opposition. I don't know whether that is necessarily the major issue here. There's a lot of operators who voluntarily do ID scanners, and good luck to them, and that's something that they want to do in their place. But this is an idea about integrating the whole of Queensland.
Other steps that you could do if you're willing to spend some more money around public transport. A lot of these issues sort of happen in the taxi ranks, people queuing up to try and get home. So if you have, buses, trains starting to run sort of 24 hours, as Brisbane is sort of moving towards becoming a 24-hour city, I think that would only be a positive thing. And of course, things like Uber. I mean, if you could make that legal, that'd obviously help as well.
40,000 people trying to hypothetically get home at 3 a.m. I mean, there's no buses, there's no trains. Well, there is buses, but you can't fit 30,000 people on a bus, can you? It's just a recipe for people to all be pushed down to the street. They want to get home. They're angry because they want to have a good night out, etc.
Talking to a licensee just on the weekend who was talking about the transport issues, and they are concerned as well. And I think that since they changed the model where we were all working together for solutions, and they put this new kind of, licensing boards in place, and no one is really driving the responsibility, I think that it's gone a bit backwards, and I need to get that back on track, and that's what I'm looking forward to do over the next 12 months.
I mean, Melbourne's got an overwhelming amount of street performers that, I wouldn't say it de-escalates things, but if you're in a bad mood and, let's say you're drunk, and in many cases I would say that was people who would go out and commit these horrible crimes, you see that and you're like, oh, cool, I'm in a better mood now. This guy's, done a magic trick. He's a great street performer, so on and so forth.
It's actually amazing how well a busker or a street magician can turn around the vibe on the street. Like when you're out waiting for a cab, and we've all been in that cab line on Ann Street, and there'll be that busker with the crazy bass guitar that has like 200 strings, and he'll play Oasis, Wonderwall, and everyone in the line will sing along. No, that's like things that I think those sort of little things that can help change the way people feel in the moment when they're out there on the street are really the sort of silver bullet to this problem. That we need lots of little things, not just one big slap of lockouts.
There is something in the thing now where we're reviewing it after 18 months anyway. It's going to be reviewed, and that's built into it, and we can have a look at it. Believe you, there's not going to be anybody more than me that is going to have a look at the impact of this. People
should be getting out there and doing something about this. We are going to see massive closures of these pubs and clubs that, particularly young people, are growing to love and go to. It'll be exactly the same as what's happening down in Sydney, where you have these, big, well-established clubs who really start to feel it, and some of them, even start shutting down.